Louis Stettner, a 20th-century American photographer, left an indelible mark on the history of photography through his captivating work that explored the connections between urban life, humanity, and architecture in New York and Paris. His unique approach and ability to capture the essence of people and streets have been widely admired, establishing a lasting legacy. Born in Brooklyn, New York, into a family of craftsmen, Stettner developed his love for photography as he grew up. His passion for art began during a visit to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in Manhattan, where he was inspired to explore the world through the lens of a camera. Stettner's trajectory took a significant turn during World War II, when he joined the United States Army as a combat photographer in Europe. His battlefield experience influenced his photographic vision, and after the war, he found his way to New York's famous Photo League, where he sought to capture post-war life and the human connections that defined his surroundings. In 1946, Stettner decided to settle in Paris, where he continued his visual exploration, and furthered his education in photography and film at the Institut de Hautes Études Cinématographiques. Over the years, he maintained an intimate connection with both cities, New York and Paris, documenting the lives of the working class and the architecture that shaped their urban landscapes. His work stood out for its focus on the human dignity of the working class, and his ability to capture the essence of everyday life. From the changing faces of people to the grandeur of iconic bridges and buildings, Stettner managed to create a visual narrative that transcended time and space. As he aged, Stettner continued his passion for photography, using a large-format camera to explore the beauty of the landscape in Provence, following in the footsteps of his mentor Paul Strand. In summary, Louis Stettner made an enduring mark on photography with his ability to capture the essence of urban life, humanity, and architecture in two of the world's most iconic cities, New York and Paris. His passionate approach and commitment to authentic representation of people and places make him a photographer whose legacy lives on in every image he captured. Louis Stettner was born in Brooklyn, New York, in 1922, where he was one of 4 children. His father was a carpenter, so Louis learned the trade when he was young. Over time, he used the money he earned to support his growing love for photography. At the age of 13, his parents gave him a box camera as a gift, which served to sow the seeds for what would become his long career. Soon after, an article by Paul Outerbridge Jr. in a camera magazine helped the young artist appreciate the great potential of photography for interpreting the world around us. Throughout his teenage years, he made regular Saturday visits to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where he persistently worked his way through the complete history of American photography, by studying original prints and back issues of camera work. In the course of this independent study, he was particularly moved by the works of Alfred Stieglitz, Clarence H. White, and Paul Strand. Visits to Stieglitz's gallery American Place also informed his early development. Later in his teens, Stettner contacted Paul Strand to critique his own work and thus began a relationship that was to resume and deepen in 1951 in Paris. In his late teens, Stettner took his first and only classes in photography, given by the Photo League, a cooperative of photographers devoted to a newly developing socially conscious photography. Through the Photo League's exhibits, Stettner was further exposed to the work of Weegee, Edward Weston, and Louis Hine. In 1941, at the age of 18, Stettner enlisted in the Army in the Signal Corps, having requested to be trained as a combat photographer. Stettner was initially sent as a military student engineer to Princeton University, before eventually being posted as a combat photographer to the Pacific and eventually to Hiroshima. The experience of participating in World War II was to profoundly permeate Stettner's lifelong development as a photographer. After his discharge from the Army in December of 1945, Stettner returned to New York and resumed his association with the Photo League. Sid Grossman, a revered teacher and photographer, with a deep faith in the creative potential of people, and in their ability to solve critical problems, befriended Stettner and was to become a decisive influence. He went on to appoint Stettner, 22 years old, a teacher at the League. It was at this time Stettner first met Weiji, a prelude to their long-term friendship. In 1947, Stettner left on a 3-week trip to Paris which extended into 5 years. In Paris, Stettner received a commission from the Photo League to gather prints from significant French photographers, Brassai, Isis, Boubat, Douaneau, Ronis, Masclet, etc., and organized the first exhibition of post-war French photography in the United States at the Photo League's gallery in 1948. The experience of selecting these photographs was the beginning of several vital friendships with fellow photographers, foremost Brassai, whom Stettner considered as his master and with whom Stettner maintained a close friendship for decades. His lifelong friendship with Edouard Boubat also begun at this time. Stettner also explored during this time his interest in sculpture, studying with Ossip Zadkine at his Paris studio. Stettner thus became an active and valued member of the post-war photography scene in Paris, where he would be visited by the likes of Eugene Smith and Robert Frank on their trips to France for discourse on his work. Paul Strand's return to Paris permitted Stettner and Strand to establish a routine of weekly lunches. In 1950, Stettner was a major prize winner in Life's Young Photographers contest. Stettner returned to New York in the early 1950s and worked as a freelance photographer for Life, Time, Fortune, Paris Match, etc., as well as advertising firms in the US and Europe. This resulted in his traveling between the two continents. Early on, he also photographed for the Marshall Plan, but was to lose his job for his previous association with the Photo League and for refusing to reveal the political views of his fellow Photo League members to the FBI. During the later 50s, Stettner, continuing to pursue his personal creative photography begun in Paris, completed his iconic group of series, Penn Station, Nancy, The Beat Generation, and Pepe and Tony, Spanish Fishermen. It was also during this time that Stettner, possessing a sense of social and economic justice, a keen eye, and a vast self-taught knowledge of both the technique and history of photography, first began to write about photography. This was a pursuit that he was to continue periodically over the next 40 years. Beginning with 35mm photography, History of the Nude in American Photography, and later followed by his noteworthy 1970s column, Speaking Out, of Camera 35, Stettner was one of the rare photographers of the 20th century, who critiqued the historical development of photography, during his time from the point of view of a working photographer. At the end of the 1960s, Stettner began teaching and lecturing at Cooper Union, Brooklyn College, then at Long Island University. Having been awarded a National Endowment for the Arts grant, Stettner photographed his worker series. In 1975, he was awarded first prize at the Pravda World Contest for Photography, and spent 6 weeks photographing the Soviet Union. By the early 1980s, Stettner had ceased both teaching and writing his Speaking Out column, devoting the next several decades to furthering the development and expression of his own creative vision. In 1990, Stettner returned permanently to France, where his photographs continued to be appreciated throughout Europe. He also began to paint, draw, and sculpt. He was awarded the Chevalier de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres by the French government in 2001. Notably during these last years, Stettner began his Manhattan Pastorale color series, through summer trips to New York, and a 3-year project of photographing the Alpilles in Provence, with an 8x10 large format field camera, continuing as ever to print his own photographs. Stettner died in Paris on October 13, 2016, a month after the closing of his exhibition, ICIALers, at Centre Pompidou. Throughout his prolific career, Louis Stettner, a force of nature with a Whitmanesque passion for life, and the inquiring mind of a philosopher, interacted with, and was befriended by many of the most significant photographers, of the humanist school of photography, of the 20th century, Stieglitz, Brassai, Strand, Weiji, Cartier-Bresson, Sid Grossman, Lou Forer, Lizette Model, Bubat, among many others. The encouragement of fellow photographers, whose reflections and critiques of his work Stettner profoundly valued, was to reinforce a lifetime passion, that of grasping the significance of life and reality around him. As our visual journey through the captivating world of American photographer, Louis Stettner comes to an end, we find ourselves immersed in the subtle poetry of everyday moments. Stettner's lens possessed a unique ability to transcend the ordinary, revealing the extraordinary stories woven within the fabric of our lives. Throughout this exploration, we have wandered through bustling streets and tranquil corners that Stettner captured with such mastery. His photographs, like windows to another time, have granted us the privilege of witnessing the echoes of laughter, the weight of contemplation, and the fleeting connections that define our shared humanity. With each click of the camera, Stettner breathed life into the scenes before him, freezing emotions and experiences in delicate frames. His dedication to the craft reminds us that the art of observation is an act of reverence, a recognition of the beauty that resides in the mundane. Through Stettner's gaze, we have walked alongside strangers who become familiar, perhaps even a reflection of ourselves. These photographs invite us to pause, encouraging us to celebrate the simple details that often elude our hurried perception, such as the graceful curve of a lamppost, the glint of insight in a passerby's eye, the symphony of shadows and lights dancing on the pavement. Just as Stettner found beauty in the ordinary, we too should learn to see the world with fresh eyes, finding meaning in the intricate mosaic of life that surrounds us, and not forgetting that each moment holds a story, each scene conceals a feeling, and each photograph invites us to reflect, to connect, and to embrace the magic of existence itself. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. This way, you'll always stay up to date with all the videos I produce here. I also want to invite you to leave your comments about what you thought of this video, and if you have any suggestions about a photographer you'd like to see in a future video on this channel. Thank you for your support. Until the next one. See you later.